Okay, now I'm going to show you the embroidery method. You're going to want all your supplies together. Use your template, or in my case, I will probably draw my own eyes. You want a piece of paper if you're going to do that, and a pencil if you're going to draw your own. You also want you want 2 pairs of scissors, one for cutting paper and one for cutting fabric. You're also going to want a Sharpie. This is what I use to transfer the template onto the felt. Then you're going to want a piece of white felt. I will show you also how to do lips on here, though that might be split into a separate one. But you also want one of these large-eyed needles. I think they typically use this for cross-stitching, though I'm not sure. But anyways, I have several of these lying around. Then you also want your embroidery floss, and can't really put eyes on your doll without having your doll. So as I was saying in the previous one, you definitely typically want to do any needle sculpting on the face first, and you also typically want to do the hair because it's a little bit easier to place the eyes there. I also typically have a set of a pin cushion with some pins on it. Here's my pin cushion, and I usually use a couple of pins to keep the eyes secure while I'm embroidering, or else it'll slip around a little bit. Okay. I'm going to cut out the template just so that I get kind of roughly the same size eyes. I'll draw it. I typically just use, when I'm drawing, I typically just draw one eye, and I'll draw on the other side of the piece of paper to kind of, that way they're definitely both the same size, because otherwise I'm going to draw my eyes and they're not going to be the same size. So anyways. Anyways, not a whole lot of detail to that, but I put a lot of the detail into the actual embroidery itself, so it doesn't have to be super complicated. Anyways, you just cut your eye out fully. And what I usually do, you want to make sure that it's not like this side where I have a whole bunch of stuff on it. You want a very clean place to do your eyes, and I usually will then take my marker and I'll kind of draw around it. And definitely make sure you do kind of a wide outline, because you don't actually want this marker on your doll's eyes. Just find it's really easy for giving a good background, so that you know where to cut the fabric out. Okay, now we're going to do on the other side. And I'm sure there are other ways to do this. This is just my way. This is how I like to do it. Found it the easiest. Embroidery does not come naturally to me. I don't really like doing it, but it has a very good effect with your doll. It looks really good on them. So anyways, then I kind of take the template and kind of try to trace the features a little bit with pencil, which is not easy to do because the pencil it tries to stab through it. I'm going to try a little bit duller pencil, see if I can get a better effect. This is just kind of to give you a little bit of a guide. Like, you don't really need the pencil mark to be very definite or anything, but you want to be able to kind of tell what you're doing whenever you're embroidering, so you're not just embroidering blind. Okay, do the same on the other eye. And one thing I didn't do first is actually, you should kind of put your eye up to the doll to make sure it's, sorry, you can't see that. Put it up to the doll's face to make sure that it's going to be, you know, the right size. You don't want it to be too small or too big. I think I'd rather have my doll have eyes that are a little bit too large than a little bit too small. Okay, anyways. Now I'm going to cut these out using my fabric scissors. Felt is typically not very cooperative. I'm going to cut on the inside of this black line. It doesn't matter so much for the top of the eye because that's going to be covered up, but the bottom of the eye you definitely don't want any black showing because that part is actually going to be showing on your doll. So the top is not quite as important if you have black showing. I'll show you what I mean here in a second. And make sure you keep your eyes, you know which one's left and which one is right. Or else your doll's going to look a little googly-eyed. I may have actually made these a little bit too small. We'll see here in a bit. And if they are a little too small, I can make it up whenever I'm embroidering. Okay, now I have the eyes positioned on my doll. You want to try to make sure you can get them as even as possible. I usually try to look at the stitches to see how even it is. And like I was saying earlier, it's kind of easier if you have a hairline to go off of. You don't want to put these pins too far to the outside because if you do over time with you messing with the yarn and the embroidery floss, it tends to pull at the felt and then the edges start to become a little bit frayed and you don't want that. So make sure they're at least a little ways into the eyes. You can do more, you can do one down below. I typically reposition the pins depending on what I'm doing. Okay, so usually whenever I start off, let me see if I can find it here. You see right here, there's two different colors, there's blue and there's black right there. I typically go in through the back of the head to start it off. This is, like I said, another reason why I usually have hair, because then you don't have to worry later about positioning the hair, or positioning, I'm sorry, the thread around the hair. You just go kind of between the stitches. Anyways, I decided I'm going to do hot pink lips later, so I'm going to try to find some kind of color to complement that.